to Dr. Saeed for again giving me this opportunity to share my views and my experience with the researchers who join us. And I am really honored, in fact, that I have been given this chance again and again. And then I am grateful to ImmunoCure for giving this opportunity and the sponsor, Genetic Pharma. So with their support, I hope that we would be able to achieve the desired task. So today's session is going to focus on how to do research in a busy clinical setting. And Dr. Saeed will be actually also giving his input because he has uh, very rich experience of being a busy clinician and getting into research. I am sure you people must have seen his recent publication that is really remarkable. While being a busy clinician, he still managed to publish some in high class journals. So congratulations to Dr. Saeed of keeping that up. And the key thing which we are going to discuss in this, that research, and that too in busy clinicians, because when at Aga Khan University we started this thing about promoting more and more research, there were busy clinicians who used to say, sorry, I have so much work. And even now that we are so busy, we don't really get a chance to do research. So but then everybody realizes the importance of research, that how important it is. And it is more important for clinician than anyone else, because the progress is tremendous, huge. You know that there are every day there is something new. So this thing about learning and doing research and finding out yourself, are you going to leave it to someone else who can tell you, then do this, for instance, for a pharma representative or somebody, try this, try that, or you want to find out and decide and do yourself? This is the thing, this is the kind of capacity we need to develop. And I know that a number of clinicians who want to investigate, because in my view, and of course it is well documented, that research is somehow inculcated in the clinical teaching, without which, I mean, it is inquiry. I can share with you one of my, say, experience with clinicians. I was conducting a workshop in Nairobi, and there was this busy surgeon who said, no, I don't want to do research. I said, what do you do? He said, I am a surgeon. I said, okay, you are a surgeon and you don't do research? He said, no, I don't. I said, okay, when you are a surgeon, you want to find out what are the new techniques available? Are there some development? He said, yes, I do. I said, then you try to kind of, practice that and implement those things. And he said, yes, I do. And I said, then you assess the outcome? He said, yes. So then what else is research? This is the thing. I mean, even unknowingly, you will find that you are doing research, but unfortunately, it might be so that your research, your efforts are not being recorded, not being documented, because you are not sharing it. Sharing means you are not communicating it. And that is another topic which we will take up sometime, that how to communicate, how to write papers and all that. But this is the thing which I wanted to emphasize on. So let's move on. There was a questions put to us. And here is a question which is challenging. I am a young consultant, just joined an academic hospital. I want to research to better understand a common disease of my specialty in Pakistan. I am heavily occupied with clinical practice. How can I do research? Heavily occupied, clinical practice. How can I do research? Okay. Is it easy? It is not, or it depends. If you develop a kind of habit, right? You need to develop a habit of gathering the data, recording, that we will come in a while. But this is what is a young clinician or consultant who is joined in and working in a busy clinic can do. For that, he would first of all need to record things. We will take that up. Then he should look upon the resources. So what are the resources? Well, our mentor, Dr. Villani, used to say, time is a resource, right? Time, yes, take out some time. Then the other thing, other resources that your fellows who are working with you, right? Might be in a teaching hospital and you may have residents, you may have interns, right? So when you have these with you and even other staff, nurses. So what is the key here? Well, that's a huge resource and you can then team up. First of all, team up. I'm sure if you are a busy clinician, you must be having some sort of, meeting, morning meetings or other meetings, right? Or rounds or so. So those can be, very useful things for your research where you can discuss new things. Well, the thing is, are patients more well-versed about their conditions? Like this cartoon says, now there's what's happening, that everybody is on the internet, everybody can Google, and then they go and talk to the doctor. That means, in fact, the doctor must stay ahead, 10 steps ahead of patient or those who come. So for that, what is important? Again, research, and research requires reading. I'm sure everyone spends some time, maybe an hour or two at least a day, in reading an article or something. So question one, if we start from the same thing, what you need to do is that I have mentioned to you about the staff and the team. Ready your staff, educate them on the importance of the program, whatever program you are running, and with the patients. Identify your teammates. Determine which staff members will share your commitment. That commitment is something, if you are committed to your job, if you are committed to your subject, if you are committed to your goal, you can then work with that. So you also inform patient, look, this is the research which we are doing. And patients do get sometimes, excited because they cooperate, they get excited, they cooperate. They would not just say, no, I don't want to know anything, you just treat me. No, that's not that nowadays. Because the media, the computer, internet and all, they try to find out whatever they get. I mean, myself, for instance, when I face certain things, 2 or 3 things, I try to find out what is the, right approach, what should be, am I doing the right thing? Am I being treated by the doctor the right way? This is the thing. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Right. So this is the thing which you need to know. So patients you can inform and they will be beside you. Then spread the word. Yeah. You can encourage patients to invite to their families and friends. Look, this is my doctor is doing this thing. And you will find that people will approach you. Then you will mark a room, place, right? Where you do meetings, you sit with patient, counsel them and inform them and all that. So all those discussions can go on. So, but when you try to do something, You try to find out what should be my topic. Are you uncertain about your topic? That the topic I am doing, is it the right thing which I need to do? How to come up with a topic of your proposed research? कैसे आप अपना topic select करेंगे? This is what has happened. I have heard many people saying, yes, I want to do research, but I don't know what, on which topic, on which subject. So this is the thing. You may develop some kind of liking of one or two type of topics because of certain reasons. Maybe it is there are some certain issues, problems with the family, maybe with friends, maybe you. But otherwise, I mean, nowadays it is very easy. Young researchers, you ask, what do you want to do research? So everybody will say, oh, I want to work on stem cell because that looks very exciting and all that. But you need to develop some sort of, solid foundation why you have selected one particular topic. So there are certain questions which you should ask yourself. Is your background not similar to what you are experiencing now? If it is not, you may read some reading, look around and observe daily procedures, what are being done, whether patients, right, and population, their social, ethnic linkages, how are they? Because you see, these things matters. हम ये कहते हैं, हमें मुझे इससे नहीं पता कि what is the social setup or what is the ethnic group of this particular individual, but in the end, when you collect the data, you may like to see what is the pattern. Is one particular thing very common among a particular ethnic group? Is it very common among, for instance, a particular socio-economic group? Right? And so on. So these things can be very useful when you collect the data. Are the signs, instructions appropriately displayed? If those are not, need to look into those. Are they all being greeted and treated? Because this is the relationship you will develop. And that will be very good. For instance, people still, they may be calling in the literature, it is written, when the research is done on patient, they say subject. Nowadays, it is not like, people have suggested they are not just subjects, they are not to be treated as subject. They are your research partners. So they are referred to as partners. So when they are partners, that means you develop some sort of relationship with them. Then you should select among yourself who explain them about the procedure and treatment plans and everything. I mean, that person, this is also a skill which is being taught to clinicians and all that. So doctor themselves or ask the nurse. I mean, is it the nurse that tells or the doctor? Because these patients sometimes they are more open with nurses, they are more open with residents, they are more open. Traditionally, हमारे social system में ये था कि डॉक्टर साहब की हैबत होती है, जो कंसल्टेंट जो है उसका डर होता है, and sometimes they don't discuss, they are not willing to discuss things with consultants and so this is something which we need to remember and interact with patients directly so that they feel yes. Otherwise, yes, I know that in some big hospitals, patients quite often they complain, oh doctor साहब ने तो देखा नहीं consultant ने, वो तो छोटे doctor साहब बस देखते रहते हैं and all that. So those are the important things when you develop something. Then the evolving process of picking your research topic. Keep in mind, research topics are not set on stone. आज मैंने एक topic सोच लिया उसी पे ही करना है. Because when you get the data, when you collect something, then you decide, oh yes, really, is it worth studying or not? Or I should have a different type of thing. My approach should be different, or I need different data. I should have started it right from the beginning, that complete information. Had I collected that, I would have a better topic for research. And this is what Dr. Saeed will in fact share with you, that how important it is to have the whole complete information and all that. So this is what is important for the research. And then how to come up with the research topic. Again, write down 1 or 2 specific topics which interest you. Patient's problem. There are sometimes problems. Yes, there are sometimes attitudes of doctors and nurses, and people write papers on that too, that how effective the change of attitudes has been in getting better outcome with patients. Yes, so those kind of things. Example, in medicine, there may be discrepancies about the best practices for reducing certain things, conditions in certain type of patients. Think about all those things. Obesity is a problem, and in children of various ethnic and racial group, why is this so? Right? This background, and then a particular type of musculoskeletal injury, maybe why it is common, and so all those things. Because when you study, when you collect the data, you may come up with an idea, oh, all these things which I am looking at, in fact, there might be genetic factors responsible for that. There might be environmental factors responsible for that. So one need to look into all those to rule out those things. So how to come up with the research topic again? Is there a disease or condition that interests you? Sometimes people say, I have interest in cancer, I have interest in something else, because in the family it is affected and all that. What primary prevention method could be employed to reduce the risk? Yeah, can there be some? For instance, they say the oral cancer and so, or these days it is the gutka, right, which is responsible, or supari or chalia, and so. So are you interested in best secondary or tertiary prevention, or the primary level you want to? Is there a particular health issue that interests you and that drew you to enter the profession? Yes. आप पूछे इंटरव्यू के आप क्यों डॉक्टर बनना चाहते हैं, तो students, they tell you, there is something, some particular interest. Have you come across any recent news? Yes. When the developments take place, these recent news are there, and people read that and decide about their topics. So how to come up with a research topic again? Is there a particular aspect of problem? You can combine interests, right? And many things, and sometimes even controversial issues can be interesting to explore. For instance, is it medical marijuana that is now in the US being used as drug, or maybe its treatment is okay, or elsewhere it is illegal? All those things one need to look into. So participating in clinical trials, yes, one way when these things are happen, whenever new drugs or devices or new methods, we call it clinical trials, right, of those. That means, of course, on patients. And sometime, all the common terminology is RCT, randomized control trials, which are, because always there are control, and there's a whole procedure which I don't think we can discuss today in detail, but clinical trials is an opportunity for researchers or new coming researchers, right, that they can enter into that. So participating in a clinical trial puts you in the cutting edge of emerging treatment, new treatments that might help you. So to succeed in this endeavor, however, you must learn how to transform patient to study subjects. Subjects may be, as I said, not the right, should be participants, because they are going to cooperate, they are going to work with you and all that in this. So clinical trials, well, they are supported by pharma companies and all that, but you can have your own clinical trials, because as they say, sometimes there are certain issues with clinical trials. Many of those conducted in the West. Right? So we need to look into our local population, how a particular drug perform. You can even approach to drug manufacturer that, look, your drug I am prescribing and there are some issues I can tell you about. For instance, I am very much interested in ACE inhibitors because I myself have been using ACE inhibitors until one of my, he was not a treating doctor, but a skin specialist. I went to him with some problems, right? And he told me, are you taking ACE inhibitors? I said, yes. He said, stop it. And then I also searched in the literature and found out that ACE inhibitors, they create problem. There are some kind of, it affects certain things. And then in the literature, it said, yes, it is the other kind of, the problems are more associated with uh, Afro-Americans and maybe Asians, not among the whites. So who is interested in looking at that? And uh, uh, sorry to say that doctors here prescribing, you complain about one ACE inhibitor, that, oh, I got some sort of edema. Okay, ye wali nahi to ye wali le le. There are about half a dozen or maybe more ACE inhibitors which are being given, and the other contraindications in those are related to cardiovascular problems and all that. So this can be tested on that who can tolerate that and who cannot. So that is one thing. Then there are other things as well. So clinical trials, as just about the basics, you see, it could take time, right? From, for instance, people started from preclinical trial, or in some places they even call it phase 0. When preclinical or animal or even human, but for 2-3 only, they test certain drugs, and that is phase 0 or preclinical status. And then they move on to 20 to 100, some people just say 30 or so, phase 1, to test the safety, right? And that phase 1 could, as you can see, easily take 1 to 2 years. It's not that within a month or two one can come to a conclusion. Patients are observed about that how, and this stands true not only for say drugs, but even antibodies, even certain devices, even many other things. And then phase 2, when the efficacy and safety is actually tested, and that could also take 1 to 2 years, which has a smaller number. But when the number moves into 1,000 to 3,000, and could continue till 2 to 3 years. And then the FDA, of course, we all rely on what, if FDA, CDC approves certain thing, okay, that's it. But we have also local drug regulatory authorities that approves. So that is also being looked at. They also look at these things. Right, clinical trial, very interesting that you have in clinical trial, you have test or case, right? And then you have placebo. And the placebo is nothing. So sometime the individual cannot afford that drug. So that's why this joke is there. Right. So from here, I will hand over to Dr. Saeed, please, if you could take us through the next step.
Thank you, Dr.
Or to
Siddiqui.
next question. Yeah.
May I see the next slide, please?
Yes.
So far, Dr. Siddiqui has given a very interesting and excellent overview of how clinicians should be, starting to do research. One important thing is that clinical medicine is usually very, very broad, each area of it. So, for example, in rheumatology, which I practice or I'm trained in, is that there are different diseases and each disease has a broad domain. So for example, if somebody is interested in rheumatoid arthritis, they may have some degree of interest in lupus as well. They'll be treating osteoarthritis also, and it's very, very broad. So as clinicians, how do we focus ourselves? Of course there is a personal liking for a particular domain or interest in the pathogenesis of a certain disease. So, for example, I'm particularly interested in lupus because I feel it's a vague, complex disease, and my patients have difficulty in diagnosis of it, as well as the treatments are challenging. Those kind of things kind of focus you onto a particular disease. But the key to actually doing the research, the nitty gritties of it, is what I'm going to go over. Um, and that is your patient chart. So you have to have detailed notes of your patients. So unless the clinical documentation is detailed and adequate, it has as much data as there can be or is definitely needed for your research question. You cannot extract data for your research. So, basic identifiers should be there. For example, the medical record number, the date on which the patient was seen, where the patient came from, as well as the patient age and gender. Of course, I've blanked out these details, but they have to be there for you to study your disease of interest. Then the classic pattern of history taking, with the presenting complaint, the history of presenting illness, past medical history, past surgical history, family history, drug history, and so on. Those have to be followed by and large. The data should be there. Even if you are a busy clinician and you've jotted a few points down, make sure that these patterns that are usually taught in third year of medical school are maintained. Then, of course, the examination has to be decently detailed and focused. It's very good to note down the labs and other investigations in the history of the patient's chart. That would allow you to extract the data later on. So, for example, I'm interested in inflammation and I would like to know what was the initial ESR of my patient, what was the initial CRP of my patient. That I will find out maybe when I'm reviewing the charts several years later. But that data will be there, and that's how I will be able to extract it. This requires, most importantly, an organized skill to record all of this data. And secondly, it does require your patient time. So if the clinic is unnecessarily and overly busy, you're seeing patients after patients, that kind of is counterproductive to research. Detailed observations can only emerge when sufficient time has been given to observe the patient, to talk to them, to get the diagnosis right. 80% of the diagnosis is done on history taking, and it is very important that that is focused on. So the key resource to your research question is really your clinical patient record, and that has to be done in a very organized fashion. The next step is what I'm going to go over in the next few slides, which is how do we keep these records? So, Dr. Siddiqui, next slide, please. So, here is a patient library. We have electronic medical records at ImmunoCure, and we have extensive records. But this is the one of the basic elements of this record that I'm showing here is just simply keeping the medical record number, the identification data, such as the name of the patient, maybe the contact number, and where the patient came from. Maybe you can add age and gender here as well. And uh, in the last column, you have the diagnoses. So you can always pull out the charts or the files of the patients based on their diagnosis. So you want to know, how many, can I study lupus over the past 5 years? Let's pull out all the lupus patients in the past 5 years. So a searchable option should be available. Now, it's very important that this data is at least kept in some electronic, repository. If you don't have an electronic record like we do, then you can just keep it in an Excel sheet. But it has to be maintained and somewhat searchable and updated on a daily basis. This is the key. We put in the diagnosis every day that we see the patients. So we don't leave the diagnosis for the next day. Otherwise, the chart, the searchable database will never be completed, and you will not be able to search for your data. Next slide, please. So once you have your patient files with you, you can develop your questionnaire. And one easy way to maintain easy patient record is to make a Google form for data entry. So there are various categories which you can create. You can create short answers, such as for the initials of the patient. Do not put the name of the patient. Do not put the telephone number in such forms. Identification data should be minimal so that you can actually trace it to your secure database somewhere else, which is probably locally maintained and not put on a server. These are confidential data which have to be maintained securely. Um, but then you have other identifiers such as gender, which can be a choice, multiple choice questions for, say, the patient had an ANA positive, which was homogeneous or speckled pattern or nucleolar pattern or centromere pattern. So those can be incorporated as well. And then you have a fourth category where you can have, not one selection, but multiple selections are allowed. So a patient could have dsDNA antibody positive, could also have an SSA antibody positive. So you can easily make the Google form according to your disease, and then multiple people can look at the patient's charts, and using multiple computers can enter the data simultaneously. And this data will then be accessible to you in a downloadable Excel sheet. Can I go to the next slide, please, sir? So yeah, this is the kind of format that I was talking about. You can take a tutorial on how to make a Google form. There are various categories: short answer, multiple choice, as I showed you, and check boxes. So these will allow you to easily get hold of your data. The more multiple choice you're going to use, or the check boxes you're going to use, that will standardize your data better. If you use short answers, then you understand that further electronic processing will have to be done later on. Next slide, please. So once you, to retrieve your data, you can click on that Excel sheet icon, and it will produce all your data that has been entered by all the researchers which are working with you, your entire team, using the various computers, and all your variables are um, stored in the Excel sheet. Now that can be downloaded and then easily analyzed with statistical software such as SPSS. So I feel that as long as you have very good clinical data recording and you have, an astute observer, as most doctors are, but you need to, note down those astute observations. You have them, then you can convert them into data points, which will allow you to um, you know, explore your research question. Thank you. Dr. Siddiqui, please.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Saeed. Very important information there, observations and record. And now this reminded me about the when I was working in a lab. I was the moment I entered, I was given a book with number, and I was told that you must record all your daily activity, whatever work you perform in the lab, and in clean writing. So it was a thick book that is issued to every worker in the lab, and it is recorded. And then at the end of the day, someone would read it and sign, read and understood. That is another important thing, that it must be very, very clear terms it is written. And that is the property of the institution where you work. This is another thing. This is the intellectual property of the institution. That means in this case, the clinic, because it's a record generated, it is confidential. And so that without the permission, others should not access it. That is what I want to add. But now we come to question number 4, which is from a medical student, took care of difficult patient as part of the medical team. It was a rare presentation of a disease, rare presentation of a disease. This is the thing, the case, these are to be rare. And I wrote a case report, and this is the person said on it. It was very time consuming. Well, first time it is time consuming. And also, if you want every detail, if you want, to make it something unique, it is time consuming, required a lot of effort. However, most journals have rejected. Well, that is unfortunate. Most journals have rejected it, saying they no longer accept case reports. Okay, but one can try other journals as well. I mean, in Pakistan, there are journals, because sometimes journals outside Pakistan, they see that this particular condition not of interest to their audience. This is what the excuse they say, unless it is unique. But still, this case report and case report writing is very important step, or I may say very important first step for researchers, because this is by which you learn how to write. But in the case, sometimes turn out to be like police investigation, the FIR kind of thing, which is reported and which is recorded and which is maintained. Anyway, so this is the thing. The other advantage of case report is that you are working with a consultant who is very busy. And that consultant, you examine patient along with him, and there is something interesting, and he teaches. Whatever they say, make a note of it. If something is unique, because they must tell if it is unique. If it is, you may ask, is this the first time, sir, you have examined this kind of thing? He said, yes, and this is interesting. Then you can say, sir, let's write it. Well, they are busy, they say, yeah, I'll write it. But your job, if you have really developed interest in that, you write the first draft, and then you share it with your consultant or teacher or whoever is the title. That will make things easy for him, right? Now he will find time to read. Rather than you leave it to him and you will get practice, he can point out few things about that. And in this way, things will move ahead. Because remember, cases are a very important thing. These are the evidence. They provide you, some kind of opportunity to move forward in research, and not only in your clinical learning, but also in science and research. Remember that before this, okay, let's see this cartoon. I have a good news and a bad news, because this I have placed is the bad news is you have a disease we have never seen, unique. And good news is that we are naming it after you. You see, you must have came across certain conditions which have been named after patients. And the most significant and famous incidences are two. Like, for instance, the AIDS, we all know that, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. How was that discovered? There was just a case, a preliminary communication on extensively disseminated Kaposi sarcoma in young homosexual men. That was just preliminary. And this led to the discovery of AIDS as a disease. Likewise, the second one is very famous about the Parkinsonism, right? Who also found a very reported. This is a neurologist that I know who is unfamiliar with the disease. Yeah, they all are familiar. So the title of that report was an essay on the shaking palsy, right? And that turned out to be, a big disease, Parkinsonism, and so on. So these are some examples we see. So don't leave any interesting case slip by. If there is something, and sometime you try to find out why is this unique case. For instance, you may be examining somebody particularly from a different background, from a different ethnic background or any other thing, and you say, oh, this is the first time we have seen this in this community. These are the kind of things that can be noted, an important thing. So always note, this is the saying of a very famous, you all must be knowing, physician, scientist and all, who actually started these many things in medicine. Always note and record the unusual. Whatever is unusual, record it. And that unusual thing, you will find out from the record book, from the log book, from those charts which Dr. Saeed has shared with you. That this will, because the record will give you a chance to always go back when you think, oh, we have seen yet another case, yet another case. That means, all those cases are similar, and then you can even write case series. So sometimes some journals say we don't publish case, but if it's a case series, yes, interested, we are. And I know that BMJ, even from Pakistan, they accept the case series, and people have submitted those kind of things too. But there are journals even within Pakistan who who accept interesting cases. JPMA does one. It does not just reject cases like that, but it has to be unique, unusual, so that other will learn something new. Right. Now, about this research, there are advantages. So far, what we have learned about the research, getting engaged in research, which is naturally inculcated on clinician. Yes, I say so, and I have found this written by in many essays, and I believe in that too, because the training of a clinician right from the beginning, it starts with observations and noting down the things, right, and then talking about it, because this whole culture of recording things, taking history, right, and having the record, and then the discussion in clinical rounds, that all is research, because this gives you an opportunity to discuss, sort out difficult things, and then discussion is already there, because then your colleagues will point out to certain things, whoever participating. And then the investigations, recording, presenting, reporting, all those, that is a culture, isn't it, that develops. But if you do it with interest, well, then there is a lot of learning in that. So a successful clinician has spent several years. Yeah, it is not just like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 7 years or 8 years doing some form of individual components of research during training, one or the two. And yet, it is surprising if a clinician says, "No, I am not a researcher. I am not interested in research." I mean, that means all this, what training he has got, all that knowledge that individual has acquired, all that is not going to waste if a clinician does not participate in research. This is my kind of impression and my suggestion, that the clinician must participate in research no matter where they are placed. There are things that can be sorted out. Maybe in the next session we will talk about some of those things, some of the issues, how to sort out, how to collaborate and all that. So maybe it's time near ending. I must take a stop here. And Dr. Saeed, would you like to add, please?
Professor Siddiqui, thank you so much for a very enlightening talk as usual. I'm very grateful to all the participants for participating in this session today. There will be a second session later on. It will be scheduled on the same topic as part two of how to do research in a busy clinical setting. So we will see you all then, inshallah. Thank you so much.
Okay.